Memories of the first meeting that day flooded from his heart. It was lunchtime and the cafe was full. He was sitting alone at the table when he saw the hostess return and ask if he minded sharing the table with a stranger. Shawn agreed, and when she returned with his date, he was glad he said yes. The girl was the epitome of beauty. Tall, slender, but with curves in the right places and long, sandy hair. She did not walk towards the table, but seemed to glide, as if it was completely easy for her. She had a mesmerizing smile, and her eyes were the bluest he had ever seen. Shawn immediately felt nervous. This magnificent creature was clearly not for him. After all, he was just a private renovation contractor, his own boss, doing carpentry and minor repairs for households and businesses. He was very successful at this, but it meant he wore jeans and long-sleeve shirts to work. He was definitely dressed too casually for this table. The hostess introduced her as Erin, and she sat down. They immediately started making small talk, starting with Shawn apologizing for his clothes and talking about his job. Erin immediately brushed off his apology, saying that it didn't matter to her and that she was just grateful that he agreed to share the table. As the meal went on, they told each other a little more about themselves, and by the end of the meal they had exchanged phone numbers and agreed to meet on the weekend. Their relationship progressed, and Shawn eventually asked Erin to marry him, although deep down he always thought that someday she would realize that he was not good enough for her. Erin agreed, and after a year of dating and 6 months of engagement, they got married. The wedding took place in the spring and was a big affair, although Shawn would have been happier with a smaller wedding. But he also knew that on her wedding day, Erin was the most beautiful bride that had ever existed. Her smile that day was proof to Shawn that a big wedding was the right choice. As their relationship progressed into marriage, so did their careers. Erin managed to get a job as an accountant right out of college, the same job she still held, in the same office right across from the cafe where they met. It wasn't unusual for Shawn to often come over for lunch midweek. They always tried to sit at the same table, but due to the lunch crowds, it wasn't always possible. However, they appreciated every minute spent together in the cafe. This place will always be special to them. Shawn's renovation business also flourished. He developed a reputation for excellent work, often coming in at or below his estimate and always completing the job on time. Soon, free publicity through word of mouth meant that as soon as he completed one project, another was waiting, and it was booked 6 months in advance. There were others who did similar work, but not so well, and so people did not mind waiting for his services. Shawn and Erin decided early in their relationship that they would not rush into parenthood. Both wanted children, but thought it would be better to wait until they were established in their careers. Since everything was going so well, Shawn was starting to think that the thought of becoming a father was becoming more and more real. But he always deferred to his beautiful wife. When she was ready, he would be ready too. In fact, this compliance precisely described his relationship with Erin. Shawn adored her, loved the way she took charge of their finances, making decisions about what car to buy, where to go, or where to go to dinner. The main thing is that she is happy and Shawn is happy too. By this time, it was already 6:30. She was 30 minutes late. He pulled his phone out of his pocket and tried making calls again, both his cell phone and his office phone. The cell phone immediately went to voicemail, as it had all day, and the office phone answered with an answering machine. He knew that the door to the office building across from the cafe closed at 5:30, so there was no point in trying to get in. By 6:45, his emotions began to get the better of him. He felt worried that something had happened to her, and he felt helpless, not knowing what to do to contact her. Maybe she hadn't received any of his messages and calls at all, but they had agreed to meet yesterday, so it was impossible for her to forget about something as important as the anniversary of their first meeting. Finally, he stood up and walked over to the hostess stand. He asked the girl if anyone had called to cancel the appointment, or maybe someone had come early and then left. The hostess didn't have any messages, but asked what Erin looked like. Shawn took out his phone again to show the photo, and when he showed it to the girl, she turned pale. Shawn immediately noticed her reaction and persistently asked her to tell her what she knew. At first, she didn't want to say anything, but the longer he insisted, the more she realized that he had to find out the truth. She looked at Shawn and said, I recognize her. She was here this afternoon around 3 o'clock. She came alone, but soon a man came in and sat at the table with her. They talked for about 30 minutes, and as he was leaving, he walked over to her side of the table and kissed her. After he left, she stayed for about 15 minutes and then left alone. Shawn felt his heart sink. He looked at the hostess again and asked, Are you sure it was this woman? The hostess replied, Yes, I'm sure. Women of such beauty are not forgotten. Shawn returned to the table to pick up his jacket and then headed towards the door. The hostess stopped him and said, I'm sorry I have to tell you this, but I felt you needed to know. She handed him a piece of paper and added, This is my phone number. If you need someone to talk to, call me. Shawn thanked her and left. He walked to his car and decided to drive through the office building parking lot one more time. Her car was still parked there, which only made him even more confused. Did she really leave with someone, maybe with that man from the cafe? Or was he still there with her? The thought of them having an affair washed over him, and he felt nauseous. He drove home, arriving at about 7:30. Not knowing what to do, he went to the refrigerator and took out a beer. Then he returned to the living room and sat down. No lights, no TV, just sitting there, his mind racing with two questions: what happened that he didn't notice, and what would he do next? Gradually the room became completely dark, but Shawn did not pay attention to it. Strangely, it was a little easier for him to think in the dark. Unfortunately, even in a dark room, thoughts did not bring answers. There was no obvious solution. As time passed and the hours approached night, he became increasingly restless, fearing the worst. Finally, a little after 10 o'clock, he heard her car pull up to the house, the car door closing, and then the keys in the lock on the front door. When she opened the door, he could barely make out her silhouette against the street lamp outside the window. She closed the door, reached for the light switch, and the room was filled with light that was now unbearable for Shawn. Erin turned to the center of the room and, seeing him, winced. She looked at him and said softly, Sorry it's so late. Today is not a good day at the office. I needed to stay and finish some things. How was your day? This is it, Shawn thought. It's time to start figuring it out. Well, it was an interesting day, he said. The morning was pretty good, but from lunch until the evening, it was probably the worst damn day of my life. His words surprised Erin. Shawn never expressed himself like that unless it was during rough sex. She looked at him with concern. Shawn, that's harsh language. I'm not used to hearing that from you. What's happened? Shawn was ready to begin. Sit down and make yourself comfortable, Erin. This may drag on for the evening. 3 things happened today that have never happened to me. It was as if everything had been planned to fall on me at once, crushing my soul and leaving me broken and embittered. Erin sat down on the couch opposite Shawn. She looked at him and started to say something, but he interrupted her. First, since 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I have been desperately trying to contact my wife. I sent you messages, I called your cell phone, I even called the office, and all I got was a stupid secretary who somehow couldn't get a message to you, unless you received it and ignored it, which, given all the facts, is a very possible explanation. Shawn, I would never ignore your message. I don't know why the secretary didn't give it to me. I will make sure this doesn't happen again. As for my phone, I turned it off this afternoon because I was working on a difficult task and didn't want to be interrupted. Apparently, I forgot to turn it back on. Sorry, dear. Shawn didn't believe it. What if something happened to me? How would they contact you? I don't remember a time when you didn't receive my messages. Even just a short, love you, or thinking about you. Heck, I'd even accept a stupid emoji just to know you're receiving my messages. Shawn, I said, I'm sorry. It was the first time, as you said. Can I get some slack? I promise this won't happen again. Please don't be mad at me for this. Oh, don't worry, there are many more reasons to be angry with you than just this one. Second, a woman I had never met before gave me her phone number and told me I could call her if I needed anything. You know what? I took this number because maybe I really need something. He took out a piece of paper with the hostess number to show that he was serious. Her face changed again from a sad expression to shock. What are you talking about? Why didn't you tell her that you were married and didn't need her number? You never behaved like this, darling. Is this all because you couldn't reach me by phone today? Shawn stood up. He could no longer sit still. Walking around the room, he said, well, as I said, a lot of things happened today that have never happened before. Should I continue? Maybe you'll give me this phone number first. You don't need anyone else's number. I love you, Shawn. How can I make things right for you? Shawn tried to control his anger. If he thought about it, this was certainly the most furious moment of his life. He put the piece of paper back in his pocket and said, no, I'll keep it for now. We'll see if we need it in a few minutes. Shawn, why are you doing this to me? He didn't answer her question. Instead, he continued to present his reasons. Third, the reason I was so desperate to contact you was to tell you how much I was looking forward to our meeting tonight. Remember, the cafe at 6 o'clock, our 8th anniversary of our first meeting. I even sat at our table, sat and waited. The shock of these words overwhelmed Erin, and pressing her hand to her lips, she began to cry. Oh dear, that's why you're so upset. I can't believe I forgot about this. I feel so stupid. Shawn. She stood up to approach him, but he stopped her. Sit down, we still have a long conversation ahead of us. Shawn, please, she exclaimed. Let me fix this somehow. I need you around, Shawn. I don't want you to be so mad at me. Please, dear, do you want to know what you can do for me? Here, I'll give you a chance. I need to know everything that happened to you from the 2 hours when I started trying to contact you until the moment you returned home. I want the truth, Erin. Don't hide anything. This is important because the chance to save our marriage depends on your answer. Shawn, what the hell is this? You say that our marriage is on the rocks because I accidentally missed our anniversary. And then she fell silent. Her expression instantly changed from anger to fear. At that moment, she realized that he must have found out about her meeting with Roger in the cafe this afternoon. He must have known that Roger kissed her. She didn't know how he found out about it, but now everything became clear to her. He walked up to her, grabbed her by the shoulders, and, holding her tightly, said, Erin, I'm serious. Please answer carefully. I only want the truth. At least you owe me this. She fell onto the sofa, grabbed a pillow, and pressed it tightly to her chest. Quietly, she said, You're right, Shawn, you deserve the truth. I'll start with the worst part, but if you stay and let me explain, then if you want to leave, I won't be happy, but at least I'll know that you heard everything I needed to say. Will you stay at least until I tell you everything? Shawn sat down on the other end of the couch. I promise I'll listen to you. Actually, I need to listen to you. This is probably the most important conversation of our lives, so I'm not going anywhere. She lowered her head, trying to find the words she needed to say. She wasn't ready for this conversation, but she knew she had no choice. She decided it was probably best to just put the worst out there. Shawn, I want to start by saying that I love you, and I desperately want to spend the rest of my life with you. You are my soul, you are everything I have ever wanted in a man, and I am more confident in that now than ever. But I know that I hurt you, and for that I am very sorry. I know that mere words cannot erase the pain I caused you, but I promise that I will spend the rest of my life trying to get rid of it. Another man kissed me today in a cafe, but I stopped him, and that was the end of it. Please believe me, Shawn, I didn't cheat on you, and I didn't intend to. Do you believe me? He sighed. I want to believe, but you're right, the pain is too strong. You only partially answered my question. What else happened today? She looked up at him, and he saw tears rolling down her cheeks, falling off them and falling onto her blouse, covering her breasts. Let me do more. Shawn, let me go back to the very beginning. You deserve to know everything, and as much as it pains me to say it, you should know everything. What do you mean it hurts you? Am I not the one who ended up in the shit here? She shook her head and said, Yes, but my pain is how much pain I cause you, and believe me, darling, the last thing I want to do is hurt you. Her voice trembled as she continued. His name is Roger. He started working at an accounting firm a couple of months ago. At first, I didn't think anything special about him. He was just a new guy. He had a job like the rest of us. But after a couple of weeks, I noticed that he started flirting with me. It was very low-key at first, little things like synchronizing his appearance at the water cooler with mine, or him holding the door open as we entered and exited the building. Later, this became more obvious. I began to catch him staring at my legs or standing next to me, trying to look into my blouse to see my breasts. I know I should have reprimanded him right away, but it went to my head a little. It was nice to know that I could have such an influence on him with just my appearance. Shawn interrupted her. You don't understand that what he did was sexual harassment. He should have been fired for this. I know, looking back, it was wrong. But at the time, to be honest, I wasn't sure it was harassment because it implied that I was resisting his advances. The truth is that it was voluntary. I provoked it myself. One day at a meeting, when I noticed that he was looking at my legs, I straightened them and then crossed them again to see how he would react. If I knew he was coming into my office, I would unbutton the top button of my blouse, hoping to hear his breathing change when I knew he was looking inside. Shawn caught his lips between his teeth and turned away. Erin noticed this and panicked a little. Stay with me, please, Shawn, please. Without looking at her, he said, Continue, I'm listening. It's just something I never thought I'd hear from you. I know, dear, and I never thought I would have to say this. I'm really sorry. She grabbed a napkin to wipe away the tears that kept flowing. After she took a deep breath, she continued. I really thought it was just a game, two adults playing a game that shouldn't be played, and no one got hurt. I don't think there was any particular attraction between us, at least not then, for sure. I thought that I could handle it and that everything would remain at the level of what we were already doing. But over time, the game became more and more serious. It all started with casual glances, but soon turned into more outspoken remarks. He'd see me bending over the file cabinet and say something like, I hope you'll look for that file all day so I can keep looking at your ass. Or he would come up from behind and start massaging my shoulders, which was nice, relaxing, but also felt like something sexy. After he left my office that time, the guilt of what I did pierced my heart. I looked at your photo on my desk and started crying. I couldn't believe I let myself get this far. I had no reason for this. I love you with all my soul, and the last thing I wanted was to do something that could jeopardize our relationship. When I look back, I realize that at that moment I should have told you everything and not continued to drag it out further as I did. If I had told you then, we could have done something to stop this. I immediately sent Roger a letter saying that we had gone too far and we needed to stop this right now. Less than 5 minutes later, he returned to my office. At first, he apologized and said that he understood, but then he stood up, looked me in the eyes, and said that he was no longer playing because his feelings for me were not just a game. He said that he was falling in love with me and would do anything to make me fall in love with him too. I told him to leave immediately, and he left. But soon he started sending me several letters a day, telling me what he loved about me, what he would like to do to me. I knew he could get fired for writing such letters, but I was afraid that if I spoke about them, he would simply tell his boss that I was also involved in these activities and I would lose my job. And he was right. I flirted with him, even though I knew it was wrong on many levels. This week his pressure on me has increased. He began to describe what our life would look like if we were together. He also started taunting you, saying that you are not the man I need, and he is the one who can take care of me in every way. Shawn, I didn't respond to any of these emails. I usually deleted them as soon as I read them. Looking back now, I wish I had never opened them in the first place. She paused and then looked at him again, continuing her story. This will be the hardest part for me to tell you. Shawn, please stay with me and let me finish. As disgusted as I was by his attempts to win me over, I was still pleased that I was still attractive enough for someone to try anything to get me to go to him. The conflict I began to feel in my heart suddenly brought back memories of my college life. I know you never wanted to know about my past experiences before we met and fell in love, and I'm grateful for that because I'm not sure you would have been happy with the woman I was back then. I pushed those memories aside when you showed up and charmed me. I never thought about them again until Roger started pressing me. Suddenly, the memories came back, the thrill of the hunt, the knowledge that you could do whatever you wanted, with anyone, whenever you wanted. Suddenly, Roger became the embodiment of that time, my time before you. Suddenly, my two lives collided with each other, and Roger became the one leading me down the path from the past. It was eerie how two lives that I had tried to separate came back together. It seemed that I had lost complete control of myself. Shawn, I'm really surprised that you didn't notice that something was wrong with me the last few days because I was an emotional wreck inside, and yet I did everything to hide it from you. I knew that at some point I would have to tell you everything, because I clearly couldn't hide my past from my present anymore. You saved me from a time when I wasn't the best person. I love you for many reasons, Shawn, but the fact that you saved me from a life you never knew is the best thing you ever did, even if you didn't know you did it. And yet I couldn't seem to understand it when I looked at it. Every time I saw Roger, I felt a flush, a pinch of my past coming back. I'm not proud of it, but in my past, if a guy like Roger showed me the attention he showed, I would have already given in, let him do whatever he wanted, because I would have wanted it too. Finally, this morning it all came to a head. I could no longer live in this chaos that my life had become over the past few weeks. When I got to work in the morning, I went straight to Roger's office and told him straight out that it was over and that he should stay away from me and leave me alone. He, of course, was not happy, but I thought I made it clear that this would not happen further. I returned to my office and got to work. I thought that the best way to process all this was to try to lock it back in the same compartment in my head where my old life was hidden, and the best way to do this was to immerse myself in the present. For me, it was my accounting job during the day and you the rest of the time. Around 3 o'clock, I realized that I hadn't eaten all day, so I went to the cafe across the street because it was the closest place and I could quickly get back to work and start again. I told the receptionist where I was going. Apparently, while I was there, you called and she told you I wasn't available. I still don't know why she didn't give me the message. Well, now that I think about it, maybe I do. At about 3:15, Roger came in. He immediately came up to my table and sat down without waiting for an invitation. Now I understand that he probably came to the office to find me, and then asked the receptionist where I had gone. Maybe that's why she didn't give me the message. Maybe Roger talked her into it. I don't know, but the more I think about it, the angrier it makes me. Roger sat down and I told him I didn't want to talk to him, and I thought I had made that clear enough back in my office. He admitted that he understood what I said, but looked me in the eyes and said that he couldn't just leave without putting everything on the line. I should have gotten up at that moment and left, but for some reason I couldn't do it. I don't know what held me back, but I sat and listened to him. When Shawn heard this, he turned his head away. It was difficult for him to look at Erin while she recounted the events that had happened just a few hours ago. It was hard to hear about everything that had happened up to this point, but he was able to control his emotions. Now he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to hold on when she continued. Erin noticed that he turned away, and her tears began to flow even more. Her voice began to tremble as she continued. Shawn, don't give up, please. I know it's hard, but you asked me to tell you the truth, so you need to hear everything. I don't want you to have any questions about how much I love you even more now, after putting you through all this. Roger should be working in an ad agency because he started listing his reasons why I should leave you and go with him. He told me about his childhood, how his parents raised him, so that when he got his own family, to be as successful in raising children as they are in raising him. He said that he had many girlfriends before, but none of them met the standards he set for his future wife. He was looking for someone who was smart, beautiful, successful, who could excite him not only physically, but also intellectually. He said he had set an almost impossible standard for his future wife, and his loneliness was due to the fact that he had not yet found such a woman. Then, when he started working at my company, the first thing he noticed was my beauty. but he didn't rush to decide whether he wanted to court me. Immediately, he noticed my ring, so he realized that the chance of being with me was practically zero. But as we started to get to know each other a little more, he realized that I could be the one. I'm so ashamed of this, Shawn, but the flirting that I allowed, and even encouraged the flirting that I thought was harmless at the time, was what made him think there was a spark between us. Shawn interrupted her. Were there any sparks between you? I don't know, I didn't think there were any, but at the same time I was pleased, because I thought how great it was that this good, handsome guy was spending time with me, enjoying my flirting and responding to it. I didn't realize that his flirting had a more serious purpose. He wanted to make me fall in love with him. As he continued to make his case, I began to realize even more that he didn't just want to have an affair with me. He really wanted to take me away from you and spend the rest of his life with him. I was horrified when I realized how much time and effort he had spent on his strategy. As he was telling me this, for some reason I started crying. I still don't understand why, but he took it as an opportunity to show some affection. He reached out and took my hands, which were placed on the table, and I did not pull them away. Finally, he took his final step. He said, Aaron, I'm pretty sure I've fallen in love with you, and the thought of continuing to live without you is unacceptable to me. I'll ask you one more question, and I don't want you to answer now, but think about it as much as you need. Aaron, make love to me just once, and I will show you how well I can satisfy those needs too. We can be discreet, and your husband will never find out. And if after this you don't see yourself with me, I will leave terribly hurt and trying to figure out how I will cope with this pain. But I'll leave if you want me to. With these words, he stood up and came to me from the other side of the table, kissed me. When I realized what was happening, I pulled away and told him to leave immediately. He left, and I stayed in the cafe for another 15 minutes before returning to my office, where I locked myself in and tried to make sense of this terrible mess in which I found myself. I tried to work, because it was work that helped me forget about what happened earlier that day, but now I couldn't work anymore. I couldn't concentrate on the numbers in front of me. All I could do was replay in my head everything that had just happened, and soon it became a replay of my entire life. Apparently, I completely forgot about our anniversary. I didn't even realize how much time had passed since I returned to the office. My phone was turned off so he couldn't distract me. It was just a complete swirling sensation of emotions, thoughts, memories, everything flying around and banging in the corners of my mind. And then, without knowing it, you handed me 2 rescue ropes, which I grabbed and pulled myself out of the terrible chaos that I created. I looked at the photo I have on my desk, the one where you're wearing a plaid shirt and one of your faded jeans. You're so damn sexy in this photo, with that little laugh coming out of your lips. Do you know how many of my female colleagues have walked into my office and just licked their lips at this photo? And every time they do it, I am filled with pride knowing that this sexy man they dream about is my husband. And then I looked at my rings, my wedding and engagement rings, and I immediately remembered those 2 days. When you got down on one knee and proposed to me, my heart burst with happiness and love. When I told you yes, you stood up and carefully placed the ring on my finger, and as I was getting ready to jump into your arms and hug you, I noticed that you were crying. From that day on, I knew that your love for me was stronger than anything in the world. The same thing happened on our wedding day. I just couldn't believe that I was so lucky to have found my soulmate, my life partner, the one I wanted to be with every day of my life. I know it may be hard for you to believe it now, Shawn, but throughout those 2 months, that love never faded, it never went away. It was this love that saved me from what Roger did to me. Shawn, it was you who I promised to spend my whole life with. It is to you that I swore my eternal love. When I realized this, it was as if the fog cleared and the light turned on, and I followed your lifeline back to where I belong. I felt relieved at some point. I knew that I could remove my stupid behavior and not have to deal with him anymore. And yet I knew that at some point I would have to tell you. If we really love each other as much as I know we do, I couldn't hide anything from you. I needed to tell you everything, even though I knew it would hurt both of us. Your pain will be from what I did to you, and my pain will be from how I see how I hurt you. When I looked at the clock, I saw that it was almost 9:30. I couldn't believe how much time had passed because of all this. I knew I needed to get back to you. I needed to be in my safe place where I was loved unconditionally. I hoped that I could rely on this unconditional love to help me forgive myself for what I had done. I knew I should have told you, I just wasn't sure how or when. So when I walked in here and you were sitting alone in the dark, I was surprised. When you started saying that this was probably the worst day of your life, I was confused until I realized that somehow you found out about my day with Roger in the cafe. I wish I had the chance to tell you all this before you found out about Roger yourself. I would tell you everything. You just kind of forced me into action, and that was exactly what you had to do. Erin stood in front of the couch. She began to unbutton her blouse. When Shawn realized what she was going to do, he reached out to try to stop her, but she moved away from him a little. When the last button of her blouse was undone, she took it off and dropped it on the floor next to her. She unfastened the front clasp of her white lace bra, and it soon joined her blouse on the floor. She then reached behind her and unzipped her skirt until it fell, and she slid out carefully. She took off her heels, so all that was left were her white lace panties, which were clearly part of her bra set. When she took them off and stood completely naked in front of Shawn, he could hardly restrain the urge to smile and reach out to his naked wife. Erin knelt in front of Shawn. Tears continued to flow down her cheeks. She looked at him and said, "Shawn, I love you so much, and I will spend the rest of my life telling you about it. I will also spend my whole life asking for forgiveness for all of this to happen, if that's what it takes for you to continue to love me. I opened up to you body, mind, and soul. Please, Shawn, please forgive me. Please tell me that you love me and that you will always love me." Shawn looked at his naked wife kneeling in front of him and couldn't help but smile. But he had listened to her talk about the past 2 months with little interruption, and he knew it was his turn to explain how he had felt during the ordeal. He knew it would take some time, and he didn't want her to remain sitting on the floor the entire time. "Erin, please sit down. We're here for a long time, and I don't want you to get hurt." "Shawn, I'm already hurt, but if you told me to kneel on the glass shards so that you would forgive me and continue to love me, I would do it in a heartbeat." Shawn wanted to laugh when he heard her joke, but in fact he realized that she was serious. He waited until she stood up and returned to the couch, still naked, but at least not kneeling on the floor. Once she was settled, he began his answer. "Erin, first of all, I will never stop loving you, no matter what happens. I told you that when I gave you the engagement ring, and I told you that when I gave you the wedding ring. I've said this almost every day of my life. You hurt me deeply with this, and I'm not sure I can recover, but it's not because I don't love you. I believe you when you say you didn't cheat on me, but in this case that only means to me that you didn't sleep with him. In my mind, you still cheated on me, and I'll tell you why. I gave you time to explain what you did. Now please give me time to tell you what you really did to me. Perhaps I will have questions. Can you promise me that you will answer each one truthfully, no matter how difficult it may be?" She lowered her head, then nodded. Shawn knew this was his signal to continue. "First of all, a question. When he kissed you, did you kiss him back?" He noticed that her tears began to fall again. She answered very quietly. "Yes, at first yes, but then I interrupted it, and I felt that he wanted to continue. I stopped it, Shawn." He replied, "I don't think it matters that you stopped. This doesn't give you any points. If you had stopped it before it started, maybe it would have meant something. I know, Shawn, and I'm so sorry, please. If I could take it all back and fix this, I would do it in a heartbeat. Please, Shawn. Just stop for now, Erin. We still have a long way to go. I want you to understand the pain you have given me. You say you know, but I don't think you're even close to realizing it. You say you love me, but you have put me in a position where now I have to doubt that love," she exclaimed. "Shawn, I know I slipped up, but my love for you is now stronger than ever." "No, Erin, you're wrong. Please let me explain. When you agreed to become my wife, I immediately went into a mode of life where everything I do because I love you. When I go to work, I try to do my best because I love you and want to provide for you. When I come home, everything I do here, I do because I love you. My whole life is dedicated to loving you. Everything else doesn't even occur to me. You are my world, Aaron. When I wake up, the first thought that comes to my mind is you. When I go to bed, the last thing on my mind is you. And until today, I thought you were the same. I've always felt inferior to you because you're this brilliant, smart, sexy professional woman with a degree, successfully working in the professional world, and I'm just a carpenter, a jack of all trades, with no education. She started to protest, but he interrupted her. And yet, as strange as it may sound, I know that you love me, despite my shortcomings. Over the years, I felt less and less that we were at different levels of the chain of life. You have proven your love for me by simply staying with me and never making me feel inferior. This is another reason why I try to do my best for you. I like that in what we did it for each other. All our efforts were aimed at making our life together as good as possible. To me, this is true love when you dedicate your entire being to loving someone so much that you put them on a higher level than yourself. That's how we were, or at least that's what I thought. But when your boy toy entered the picture, you switched from this mode slowly at first, but more and more every day. See, when you started flirting with him, it wasn't something you did for our relationship. You did it for yourself. When you started talking to him and teasing him, you were doing it for yourself, not for us. Everything you did with him, I'm sure, was just for you. In fact, I'm sure that whenever you were with him, doing anything, I was the furthest thing from your mind at that moment. And I guess I can forgive you for that. Maybe it's unrealistic to expect that everything you do should be for the two of us. I don't want you to feel like I own you and that it's unrealistic that you have to dedicate every minute of your day to me. But today you went too far. From the moment he kissed you until the time you returned home, you were pondering the decision of whether to stay with me or leave with him. And even if you didn't sleep with him, in fact, when you thought about such a choice, you were already cheating on me. When you imagined your life with him instead of me, you cheated. That's why I now doubt your love for me. Because I can tell you for sure if the situation was flipped and someone kissed me and asked me to leave my wife for him, well, I would have broken up with it a long time ago before it even got to that point. My love for you is so strong that I automatically say a very strong no to anyone who tries to interfere with this in any way. But you didn't. For 2 months, you allowed someone to interfere with our relationship. It may have started out harmless, but I can promise you that it resulted in a tremendous amount of pain. I don't think you can even imagine how much I'm suffering right now. The hardest thing I had to do was question your love for me because of all of this. So now you come home and tell me that you love me and that this is all over, and I really want to believe you. But what you did was make me the winner of a game I didn't even know about. There shouldn't have been any game, Aaron. If you loved me as much as I thought you did, there would be no reason at all for you to have to make a choice. So now it comes down to a question of trust. Even if I believe you when you say that I won, that you came back to me, that you love me, that you apologize all this nonsense, the pain that I feel is still there. First of all, I need to forgive you for this, which perhaps I can do. But secondly, and perhaps this is the most important thing for me in terms of how we continue our relationship, I have to trust that you won't find someone else, and that you won't have to decide for 2 months whether you want to leave me for him. Shawn, I promise you that this won't happen again. Please, Shawn, don't talk about finishing what we have. Tell me what I need to do to convince you that I will never leave you. How can I prove to you that I love you as much as you love me? You know, Aaron, I think I believe you when you say those words. The problem is that I'm not sure there's anything you can do to heal what you've done to our marriage. I trusted you and gave myself completely to you one day, only for you to destroy that trust with your actions over the past 2 months. Do you realize that every time I see you talking to another guy, I'll wonder if this is the guy you'll leave me for? Every time you leave the house and go somewhere without me to work, to the store, to meet friends, I will wonder if you will meet the next Roger there, using my incredible beauty and charm to flirt with him, until he falls in love with you. Feelings like this won't go away just because you ask me to forgive you and trust you. I wish it were like this, that it was so easy that all I had to do was snap my fingers and all my worries about trust would simply disappear. But this is impossible. So for now, at least, I will have to live with these doubts, wondering what I will do. For the first time in 8 years, I have to make a decision for myself. You put me in this position, Aaron. I didn't want to be here, but you selfishly brought me here, and now I have to deal with it. She crawled over to where Shawn was sitting on the couch. She lay her naked body against him and said, "Please, Shawn, I understand that you will struggle with these trust issues, and I know that I caused them for you. Because I put you in this situation, please give me a chance to help you get out of it. Please come to my bed and let's start working on this trust. Let me show you that only I love you and that I will never give you a reason to doubt it again." He extended his hand to hug her, then said, "As tempting as it may sound, I think I'll spend the night in the guest room. I need to be alone to think about this. You spent your time alone during the day and evening, ironically, while we should have been together celebrating our anniversary. I need to finish a project for a client tomorrow, and I promised it would be ready. I keep my promises to my clients, just as I keep my promises to you. When I get back tomorrow night, I'll know what to do about us. As you can imagine, I have a lot to think about, so please give me this time to myself." Erin lifted her head to look at Shawn. "Before you go to bed, I need to show you something that may help you make a decision. Please stay here." She got up from the couch and went to the kitchen, where she took out her phone. When she returned to the couch, she turned it on and unlocked it. She flipped through several pages before she found what she was looking for. "Shawn, I have 2 things I want to show you that I think will help you understand how serious I am about regaining your trust. I think they will show you how much I love you and that I am ready to do anything to win your love back." I opened my work email to let you see that I spent the last hour sorting things out as soon as I made my decision. Please note that these letters are in the sent folder. That is, I have already sent them to those to whom they were addressed. The first is the letter I sent to Roger, where I told him for the last time that I was not interested in him and that he should leave me alone. I warned him that if he made any further attempts, I would file a sexual harassment complaint. If he decides to continue, I will file a restraining order against him. Shawn read the email on his phone and saw that it was indeed what she said. "Aaron, that's all well and good, but do you understand that this still requires my trust in you, that you will actually follow through on your promise to file a complaint and an injunction if it comes to that?" Erin nodded her head and said, "I understand, but at the moment that's all I can do. I hope this shows you how serious I am about us and that I'm willing to do anything to regain your trust. In fact, I hope that the second letter I sent will show you this even more." She opened the second email she sent and, without saying anything else, she handed the phone to Shawn. He silently read the letter. To the accounting guide. "The situation in my life requires that I resign from my position with the company immediately. I really enjoyed working here, and perhaps someday I will be able to return. But at the moment, it is not possible to continue working. I will take a few days off after I'll be back in the evening with my husband to ensure security, to settle my affairs and prepare them for transfer to another person. Thank you again for the opportunity to work with you." She electronically signed the letter, and the timestamp showed that it was sent before she sent the letter to Roger. Shawn needed to admit that she had taken a drastic step to try to mend her relationship with him, and she did this before she even returned home to confess her sins. He knew how much she loved this job, and her firing was a huge signal that she wanted to make their relationship work. He looked up at Erin with a few tears in his eyes. She smiled faintly and said, "Shawn, these are my first 2 steps towards you. The letter to Roger was easy to send. The letter to my bosses should have been more difficult, but when I thought about doing something for us, like you said, it was one of the easiest decisions of my life. It was just easier to fall in love with you. I hope this shows you how much I still love you and how much I'm willing to do to regain your trust." She crawled over to Shawn and placed both hands on his face, leaning down to kiss him. He kissed back. Under normal circumstances, he knew that this would have resulted in them going to bed and making love late into the night. But today, it was impossible. There were more important things to resolve before the relationship could return to normal, if that was even possible. Shawn broke the kiss. "Aaron, this is a huge gesture, and I promise you that as I consider my options, it will mean a lot. But now I need to go to bed to get some sleep. I need to be on full alert tomorrow to complete my work with the client. Before I go, remember, no matter how much you hurt me today, I still love you and I will never stop." Aaron pressed herself close to him and replied, "I know you love me, Shawn. If you didn't love me, you would have kicked me out as soon as I returned home. All I can do now is keep thinking about how I can prove to you that I will never hurt you again if you give me a chance. Please, Shawn, please let me prove it. I love you too." They separated and went their separate ways. She went into their bedroom and he into the guest room. To say that Shawn slept through the night would be an exaggeration. Between periods of sleep, he woke up, absorbed in his thoughts, and the decision overwhelmed him. There were many reasons to forgive and stay, but he still struggled with the pain in his heart, a pain he never thought he would experience. He got up early in the morning and prepared to leave, trying not to disturb Aaron. He really didn't want to contact her until he made his final decision. He wanted his choices to be as free as possible from emotions that might cloud them. It was hard to explain her side of herself last night when she sat naked in front of him on the couch. He fought the urge to pull her towards him. He felt like he had to resist his urge to take her, hold her, and love her, because even if they did, the pain would remain. That is why he decided to leave in the morning without seeing her. He threw himself into the work and completed his project ahead of schedule. The client thanked him and promised that he would call if further assistance was needed. She also took some of his business cards to give to her friends. Such advertising through word of mouth helped him achieve success. He wasn't ready to return home, so he decided to stop at a cafe on the way. He went inside, and the waitress who worked yesterday was back in her place. She recognized him immediately and smiled. "How are you? I apologize again for what I had to say to you yesterday." Shawn smiled at her. "As you can imagine, it was a little difficult for me. We are in limbo, nothing has been decided yet, but I wanted to come in and give you this." He took out a piece of paper from his pocket on which she left him her number. "Even though she hurt me, I'm not ready to meet someone else yet. I appreciate the gesture, but now is not the time." She took the paper and said, "Understand. If I can help in any way, even just to listen, you know where to find me. But I hope everything works out for you. No one deserves the pain you must be feeling right now. Thank you. Do you mind if I just sit at our table for a while? It doesn't look like you're very busy. If I need to leave, tell me, but I think I just want to sit for a while." She smiled and said, "Of course you can. Would you like free iced tea?" "That would be great. Thank you." She walked him back to the very table where their relationship began 8 years and 1 day ago. After she brought him a glass of iced tea, she left him. She came over periodically to refill his tea, but otherwise respected his privacy. She knew he thought about hard things. Shawn looked over the day. He was still kicking himself for not noticing the change in Erin's behavior over the past 2 months. He thought that maybe she hid everything from him so well. If so, it greatly damaged his trust in her. If she could hide this 2-month affair, what else could she hide? On the other hand, maybe he simply didn't notice the changes in her behavior because he was so engrossed in his work that he didn't pay attention to the subtle changes she was probably showing. He was so desperate to be successful for her in his work that he may have overlooked the other things she needed. He knew of other relationships that were struggling because someone's professional life interfered with their personal life. He wondered how he could trust her again. He had no doubt that she was sincere in what she told him yesterday when she admitted what she had done, and she begged for a chance to show that he could learn to trust her again. Her leaving a job she loved was a huge step, and she did it herself. He didn't even know if he would expect that to be part of the conditions he would consider if he decided to take her back. She did it herself, and it said a lot about her desire to regain his trust. His phone beeped, and he saw that it was a message from Erin. She wanted to know when he would be coming home and told him that she missed him and loved him. He replied that he was sitting at their table in the cafe. She asked if she could come to him, and he replied that he would be glad. 20 minutes later, she walked through the door. The hostess recognized her immediately and escorted her to their table. Sitting down opposite him, she kissed his cheek. Looking at the hostess, who was already leaving, she said, "She told you that, right? Did she give you her number too?" Shawn smiled. "Yes and yes. But one of the reasons I came here today was to get her number back. I wouldn't do that to you, Erin. No matter what happens next, even if we go our separate ways, as long as we're married, I won't cheat on you." Erin lowered her head and said, "I know that you won't change, although you, of course, would have every right to do so after what I did to you." "Shawn, are you still thinking about leaving me? I cried all day thinking about it. All I can say is that I love you, and I'm so sorry that I put you through such pain. You will see that I can regain your trust if you give me a chance to heal this pain. Please, Shawn, please." She looked up at him, and there were tears in her eyes. His first reaction was to go to her and hug her, wiping her tears and assuring her that he would never leave. At the same time, an image appeared in his mind of a man he had never met, with whom she had started a 2-month relationship without informing him, and also the fact that she had kissed him right here in the very cafe where their relationship began, and this image overshadowed his perception of a crying wife asking for forgiveness. He also thought about the pain he felt when he learned that just yesterday she was seriously considering leaving their relationship for something new and potentially more exciting. He could forgive flirting, he thought, because sometimes beautiful people do it without thinking. He might even be able to forgive the kiss at some point, although it would take time. But he wasn't sure he could forgive the time she spent putting their relationship in jeopardy. The fact that she had decided to stay with him now was not very comforting. The fact that she thought about it for more than a second was where he felt betrayed by Erin. With these conflicting thoughts in his head, he made a decision. He looked at his beautiful wife and said, "Erin, I love you and always will. But I never expected the kind of pain you caused me. This was the most difficult decision of my life. Erin," I decided. Erin looked up at Shawn, her eyes filled with tears. His first reaction was to walk up to her, hug her, wipe away her tears, and assure her that he would never leave. At the same time, the image of a man he had never met, with whom she had started a 2-month relationship without telling him, appeared in his mind, as well as the fact that she had kissed him right here, in the very cafe where their relationship began. This made him forget the image of his wife crying and asking for forgiveness. He also thought about the pain he felt when he learned that just yesterday she was seriously considering leaving their relationship for something new and perhaps more exciting. He could forgive flirting, he thought, because sometimes beautiful people do it without thinking. He could perhaps forgive the kiss, although it would take longer. But he wasn't sure he could forgive the time she spent putting their relationship in jeopardy. The fact that she had decided to stay with him now was not very comforting. The fact that she thought about it for more than a second was where he felt betrayed by Erin. With these conflicting thoughts in his head, he made a decision. He looked at his beautiful wife and said, "Erin, I love you and always will. But I never expected the kind of pain you caused me. This was the most difficult decision of my life. Erin, I decided to give us a chance to work on this." She tensed, waiting to hear his decision, and when he finally voiced his feelings, she collapsed on the table in front of her and began to sob. She looked up at Shawn, trying to read his facial expression and body language, and when he extended his arms towards her, she didn't think twice about running towards him and hugging him tightly, feeling relieved. They remained in this position for what seemed like an eternity. When she loosened her embrace a little, she placed a chair right next to him, and then looked into his eyes and said, "Thank you, my dear. I'm so sorry I put you through this. I promise that I will do everything to prove my love to you and to never cause you such pain again." Shawn wiped some of her tears from her cheeks. He kissed her on the cheek and said, "I know you will, but it's not something you need to think about. When I told you my decision, I said I wanted to give us a chance, not just you. Do you see the difference? Aaron looked at him in surprise. I see the difference, but I was the one who ruined everything, Shawn. I was the one who almost destroyed our marriage. Shawn tried to hide his smile. I know that, Aaron, at least that's what it looks like at first glance. There were things you did that you shouldn't have done, or things you didn't do that you should have. I'm sure there will be plenty of time to talk about everything that happened. I asked you to tell me the truth last night, and I think you did, but I also think there are still some questions that need answering. These issues will need to be discussed before we have any chance of success in the future. I don't know if this will help me trust you again, but I think for the health of our marriage, some hard questions will need to be asked. But as I thought about it last night when I couldn't sleep, and again today, I realized that maybe I, too, have problems that I need to deal with. Maybe there were things I did or didn't do that made you think it was okay to flirt with him. Maybe I didn't notice the signs that something was going on because I didn't want to think that something might be wrong. I have always imagined an absolutely perfect life with a perfect woman who makes a perfect couple, always treating each other perfectly, which means that they will live together all their lives and happily until the end. Now I see that something happened that I didn't expect, and I want us to figure out what it was together. What I feel now is that I don't want to look for someone to blame. I don't want us to think that it's 70% your fault and 30% mine, or 60% my fault and 40% yours. I don't care how angry I should be at you or how angry you should be at me. I just want to see what we can do to make sure something like this doesn't happen again. Aaron smiled at Shawn and said, I want that too, Shawn. While you were thinking last night and today, I had the whole day off work to think about what I did, and more importantly, why I did it. I'm so embarrassed, and I'm not sure I've found the answers yet. But one thing I would like to suggest is to go to counseling together with a marriage therapist. Let's try to find someone we can both agree on and see if we can figure out how to avoid this in the future. Consultations were also part of my thoughts today. Do you remember the Hastings, Diana, and Rick? They went to marriage therapy a couple of years ago, and they said it helped their relationship a lot. They really loved their therapist, I don't remember her name, but she really made them look deeper into their relationship and brought to light the things they had repressed that were causing problems. Maybe we should call them and find out her name. Aaron agreed. I can call them tomorrow while you are at work. I can even call and make an appointment if you give me a couple of days when you can get away. Also, do you think you can come with me to the office tomorrow evening so I can hand over my business to someone else? I just don't want to risk being there alone and running into him if he suddenly shows up. Shawn hugged her. Of course, I will go. But are you sure this is what you want? I remember you said that you were on equal terms with him in flirting when it all started, but what he did to you was real harassment. Where is the punishment for him if you leave and he continues to work? You loved this job so much. She nodded and said, I really loved this job, but it is also where I almost lost my marriage due to my own stupidity. Even if Roger left, I still wouldn't feel comfortable there. Right now, I would rather spend my time working on your marriage. If you're willing to fight for the us, I want to do everything in my power to make it work. I may be looking for something else. Maybe it's time to try starting something of my own, starting small, working from home. She paused, then leaned over and kissed Shawn on the cheek, asking the question that had been on her mind ever since he said he was ready to try to make their relationship work. Shawn, what are you going to do? Will you stay with me in our house? What's the next step? He thought for a moment, and every second of silence in his answer made her nervous. Finally, he said, I don't really have anywhere to go, and the thought of staying in a motel or some tiny apartment doesn't appeal to me at all. I'd rather stay home while we try to figure this out, but you have to understand that it's going to take time to get anywhere close to what it was before all this. I think that's our main goal, to either get it back or learn to live with the new reality. She smiled. I'm so glad to hear this. Then let's go home. Let's go home and start fixing this. I'm ready to start showing you that you can trust me again and that you don't have to worry about something like this happening again in the future. Little did anyone know at that moment that this would be their last visit to the cafe for a long time. They spent many wonderful moments together there, but just as their relationship went through a difficult period, the romantic mood they often felt in the cafe was gone. Aaron drove the car towards their house, and Shawn followed in his truck. Somewhere along the way, they lost contact, and when Aaron arrived home first, Shawn was gone. She tried to blame it on the delay due to traffic, but in fact she began to worry that he had changed his mind. About 10 minutes later, she started reaching for the phone to call him and find out where he was. But before she could dial the number, she heard his truck in the driveway. Relieved, she walked to the door and saw why he was late. He had stopped at their favorite pizzeria and was carrying a takeout pizza that she knew would be her favorite deep crust pizza with extra cheese. It might seem like a small thing to an outsider, but to her it was important even though she nearly ruined their marriage. That small gesture of him bringing her her favorite pizza told her that he still loved her. They chatted a bit over dinner. There was tension in the air, and both knew that this would be part of the new reality for now. After dinner, they made plans for the next day. Shawn was busy with renovations and had to work all day. Aaron will try to contact friend Diana Hastings to find out who their marriage therapist was. After Shawn gets home from work, he will go with Aaron to the office to be with her while she gets around to handing over her responsibilities. They went to the bedroom, which became another dilemma. They slept in separate rooms at night while Shawn thought about his decision, but neither of them slept well. He looked back at Aaron and said, "Honey, I don't want to sleep in the guest room tonight, but you have to understand that I'm not quite ready for us to be the same again. I thought we would go to bed in the same bed, but just sleep for now." Aaron smiled. It was more than she expected. She nodded and took his hand, leading him to their bedroom. He slept in shorts, and she in a long t-shirt. Sometime during the night, he rolled over and pressed himself against her back, placing his right arm on her body and his hand on her right breast. She woke up as he settled down and felt him pressed against her. Even though her body was covered, it brought her great relief. She smiled as she fell asleep again. The next morning, Shawn got up quietly, showered and dressed without waking Aaron. He felt more responsible for the satisfaction of his clients, since he was not sure when Aaron would start working again. He also definitely didn't want problems in their marriage to interfere with his work. In fact, perhaps it was the ability to immerse himself in his projects that helped him in the early days of their new reality. The job was stable and manageable, unlike his marriage. Aaron woke up and, seeing that Shawn had already left, stood up and began to mind her own business. She found her friend Diana's phone number and called her. After explaining some details of her mistake, she received the number of Dr. Jessica Brown, the therapist Diana and her husband Rick had been seeing. Aaron texted Shawn to find out what days he had an appointment. When he responded, Shawn called Dr. Brown's office and learned that the first appointment is always private, so she scheduled them for 2 sessions, one for her and one for Shawn. There was a day's break between them, first Aaron, then Shawn the next day. When Shawn returned home from work, he found that Aaron had prepared dinner for him. This was unusual. Often Shawn got home before Aaron and had to cook dinner, which was his responsibility, which he didn't mind. But he admitted that when dinner is ready, it is a very pleasant part of life. After dinner, they headed to her office so she could hand over her business to another accountant. While they were driving, Aaron told Shawn some interesting news. "Today, I received a letter from an accounting firm. It seems that after they received my resignation letter, management checked the situation and found out about my relationship with Roger. The letter didn't have any details, but they asked me to reconsider my decision and called me to talk to them as soon as possible." Shawn looked at Aaron and asked, "Did you call them?" She shook her head. "No, I didn't call, and I really don't want to. I just want to stay away if you think we can live on one income for a while." "Don't worry about the money," Shawn reassured her. "I think we can live on my salary for a while. It would just mean we wouldn't have to buy new cars or take expensive trips, and I don't think we need either of those things right now." He reached out his hand and placed it on her leg. "Aaron, what do you really want to do if you listen to your inner voice? She sighed. I wish we could take back the last 2 months and start all over again so that I would be smart and not get involved in this situation. I know that this is impossible, so I want to try to do everything to at least come close to preventing this from happening. Right now, I'm thinking that if I don't work, it will give us a better chance because it will remove some of the stress that I created in the office. Shawn agreed. Then we'll do it. The decision has been made. We won't discuss this anymore. Thank you, Shawn. I really think it will be better this way, at least for a while. Soon they arrived at the accounting office. As they pulled into the parking lot, Erin suddenly tensed and said, "Crap, what happened, dear?" She pointed to a car parked next to the building and said, "He is here, this is his car. I can't go there now. Shawn, let's leave." "Erin, are you okay? Is this Roger's car?" "Yes, Shawn. I don't want to go in there and run into him. Can't we go and come back later?" Shawn stopped the car. "Erin, I won't force you to go there. But if we leave now, I will be with you, and he will see that he has no chance. You can tell him the truth that you are only there because you left your job and are preparing everything in order to transfer your affairs to other people." "I know," Erin agreed. "I understand that this will be a chance to tell him to his face that he has no chance. But I'm just not sure if I'm ready for this. In fact, I was hoping I wouldn't have to see him again." Shawn reached out his hand and placed it on her shoulder. "Erin, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. But I'll be there, and I won't let anything happen to you. Will you be okay if you see him? You're not going to kill him, are you?" Shawn laughed. "No, I'm not going to kill him. This bastard is not worth my time in jail. Like I said, I just want him to understand that you're not available. Are you ready to do this?" "Okay, Shawn, since you're with me, I can do it. And it was quite nice when you said you wanted to tell him I wasn't available. I know we have a long way to go, but every time you say something like that, my heart skips a beat." Shawn reached out and squeezed her hand. He truly loved her, and although the pain of what she had done to him was still there, he was beginning to see the possibility that they could get through this. He parked their car 2 spaces away from Eric's car. They walked out together and Erin found her key to open the office door. They decided to go straight to her office without trying to find Eric. That way, if there was a conflict, it would be Eric's initiative. As soon as they entered, Erin froze, as if exorcising a ghost. When she felt ready, she quickly headed to her office. Shawn followed her and closed the door behind him. Erin walked over to her computer. First, she responded to a letter from her superiors in which she was asked to reconsider the decision to fire her. She then began working on her accounts, updating the information on each one before passing them on to the next accountant. After 30 minutes, they heard someone walking down the corridor. Erin looked at Shawn, realizing that a meeting with Eric was about to happen. A light knock on the door announced that Roger was standing outside. Shawn stood up from the table to let him in. He opened the door and for the first time came face to face with a man who had been trying to take his wife away from him for the last 2 months. The first wave of anger washed over Shawn, but he held it back by stepping away from the open door. Roger's face turned pale with a mixture of surprise and fear. As he walked out to leave, he noticed Erin's car in the parking lot and knew she was probably already there. However, he did not think that she might not be alone, so he was not ready to see this man between himself and Erin. Erin was the first to break the awkward silence. "Roger, what are you doing here? I thought I made it clear that I don't want to see you anymore." Roger swallowed, still clearly worried that he thought it was Erin's husband in the office with her. "I know you said it, but I wanted to come and apologize for my actions. There is no excuse for what I did, and although I thought we were getting along well, I had to control myself. I take it this is your husband. If this is the case, I want to apologize to both of you." Erin glanced at Shawn before turning to Roger. "Your apologies won't help us now, but the truth is that you definitely weren't the only one to blame. Shawn and I discussed this. He knows I was wrong too, for getting involved from the beginning and not stopping when it got more intense. I betrayed my marriage by flirting with you, Roger, but Shawn agreed to give us time to heal and move forward. I'm sure you already know, but I quit. My marriage is more important than working here, and I'm trying to put all these bad memories behind me. The only reason I'm here is to prepare my affairs to hand them over to someone else. I definitely wouldn't have come here if I knew you'd be here. Roger replied. I'm only here to remove my things from the office. Today I was fired. It seems that after you quit, management began to figure out what happened. Apparently, they found me easily. I was given 2 months severance and told to leave immediately. I'm just picking up my things. I'll hand over the keys tomorrow. I don't know what I'll do next. Erin replied, well, it's a pity that you lost your job, but I'm not worried. Perhaps they would have fired me too, but I beat them to it. She didn't tell him that she had received a letter asking her to return, and she wasn't sure how much he had told his superiors. But she knew that she, too, was to blame for the things that Roger was fired for. Erin asked briefly, is there anything else? Roger looked first at Shawn, then looked down at the floor. No, that's it. I just apologize again. I really hope you can get through this. With these words, he walked out the door. Shawn looked at Erin and said, stay here. Then he himself left the office. When he caught up with Roger, he had already reached his office, where he was packing a box of personal items to take to his car. Shawn asked, why, Erin, why did you take on it the way you did? Are you sure you want me to answer? I don't want to get hit here. Shawn assured him that he wasn't going to hit him and only asked because he wanted to understand. Roger said, because I have never met such a woman in my life. On that first day when she was introduced to me, I was captivated by her beauty, the way she gently shook my hand, the sincere smile on her face. Even then it was clear that she was a great person. I took more drastic steps than I ever had with any other girl. At first, she responded to my flirtations, she flirted back. I really thought we were onto something. But then I felt that she was starting to get colder. She told me to stop, but I didn't want to. Instead, I stepped up my actions. I started complimenting her as much as I could. I bombarded her with letters, some of which, of course, I'm not proud of. She told me to stop, but I felt there was still a chance. And 2 days ago, I took my most decisive step. When the secretary said that she went to a cafe across the street, I realized that this was my chance, the two of us, away from the pressure of the office. I made my last proposal to her, and as you probably know, I kissed her and came back. When she later sent me a letter, I realized that nothing had worked out, but I was not going to give up. And when I found out that she quit and would not return, I realized that she was running away from me, and it was all over. Of course, I didn't know how complete it was until I was called yesterday and told that I was fired. So it looks like you end up with a girl and I lose my job. I think my punishment fits the crime I committed. Shawn had one more question for Roger. In all this time, has she even mentioned me once? Did you at least say that you were married? Roger thought for a minute and then replied, no, I don't remember her saying that. I assumed she was married because she had rings on her ring finger. But we definitely weren't talking about you. Why are you asking? Because I want to find out everything I can so this doesn't happen again. Because of you, we have a lot of work to do now, and I need to find all the answers I can. Roger looked Shawn straight in the eyes and said, well, believe it or not, I hope everything works out for you. You're a lucky guy, Shawn. I thought I had a chance, but in the end you turned out to be the better man. Good luck. With these words, he left their lives. Shawn realized that if he never saw him again, he would be glad. He returned to his wife's office just in time to see her turn off the computer. She looked up at him and asked, why did you follow him? Because I want to know as much as possible. I want to understand what caused all this. If we're going to get through this, we need to put everything on the table and try to find ways to make sure it doesn't happen again. I will do anything to learn to trust you again, Erin. There may be many more things we both don't like, but if it ends up making our marriage stronger, then it will be worth it. If you told me the truth that night, and I still believe you told the truth, then you have nothing to fear. I just needed to hear his point of view. Erin, you are a beautiful woman, and he won't be the last person to look at you and want more. Some may be content with fantasies of a quickie with a sexy woman, but others, like Roger, may want something more. When this happens, I need to be sure that you can resist it. Erin walked around her desk and approached Shawn, reaching out to hug him, which he responded to. She laid her head on his chest and calmed down, hearing his heartbeat under her skin. I will spend all my time trying to regain your trust, dear. I love you so much. Thank you for coming with me today. If you can come tomorrow, I think I will have time to finish and leave here forever. I'll take you, I'm not going to make you come alone. And look at it this way, maybe it was a good thing that we were able to talk to Roger. I wasn't upset to learn that he was fired for this. They got into the car and drove home. It was late enough that they both headed straight to the bedroom. As before, Shawn settled down next to Erin, covering them both with a blanket. He thought about the day and what they had accomplished, especially meeting Roger. He knew there was still a long way to go, and it bothered him that Erin had never mentioned him to Roger in those 2 months. This needed to be discussed, perhaps when they went to see a counselor, she could help him understand it. That night, they slept together again, hugging each other, but without further developments. It was an awkward situation, being intimate but not moving on to something more, even though they were both sure that was what they wanted. But despite the awkwardness of the situation, each other's closeness and warmth brought them comfort and helped them experience deep, restful sleep, something they both sorely needed as they tried to deal with the elephant in the room. A couple of days before their first meeting with Dr. Brown, a marriage counselor, Shawn and Erin were sitting in the living room after dinner. The incident was now 3 weeks behind them, and both felt they were taking steps toward repairing their damaged marriage. But they still didn't make love, and Erin noticed that Shawn's face still showed pain. They didn't talk about it much because they had already reached the point where talking only brought back unpleasant memories. Both hoped that the consultations would be as successful for them as they were for their friends. But even though they spent every night together, Erin missed the little conversations they always had, discussions about their day, plans for weekend adventures, and so on. Moreover, now that she was not working, she began to feel that the days spent alone at home were devoid of any enrichment. She missed working every day, using a brain that had been trained for accounting. She also missed the camaraderie she shared with some of her colleagues. They had been a part of her life for almost 10 years. Suddenly, the absence of the opportunities she had enjoyed for so long became a painful reminder that her actions had hurt not only her husband, but also herself. So, as Erin sat together that evening, she asked Shawn a bold question. Shawn, how will you feel if I come to work with you tomorrow? I know I don't know anything about your work, but maybe there are ways I could help you. Sitting here all day drives me crazy, so it would be nice to spend the day with you, she said. Her idea surprised Shawn, and he thought for a few minutes. There were times when he worked alone and wished he had at least a pair of hands to help him with a project, or someone to help with errands or clean up before he left. He never had enough work to hire a full-time assistant, so he resigned himself to doing everything himself. Do you think you can handle this? He asked. It's not such a glamorous office job, sitting in a comfortable chair at a desk and working on numbers all day. When he said this, he looked at her and saw the same grin that he knew she would soon show as soon as he joked with her. She smiled and said, I know it will be much better than sitting here all day alone. Are there things I can do to help you? I would be happy to know that I helped you do your job better. Shawn nodded. There are times when one more person would be a great addition. I think we'll start small, but you're so smart, I'm sure you'll get the hang of it quickly. However, you have to understand that when I'm at work, I'm only focused on business. We can't talk about our relationship because I don't need distractions. I understand, Erin replied. I wouldn't expect anything different from you or myself. Shawn, this will just give me a chance to be there for you and help you do what you do so well. Can we try at least a little to see how it goes? Of course, why not? Looks like you now have work for tomorrow. Erin walked over to him sitting on the couch and sat down next to him. She leaned in to kiss him, and he pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her. Looking into his eyes after the kiss, she said, Thank you, Shawn. I will try to be useful to you. but just being with you is the best gift you could give me." Later, when they were in bed, instead of waiting for her to come to him during the night, he grabbed her and pulled her close to him. They fell asleep. This was their closest night since that incident. The next morning, Aaron woke up before Shawn. When he finally opened his eyes, he smelled the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and frying bacon. He walked into the kitchen wearing only shorts and saw her standing in front of the stove. She was already dressed for the day, wearing a long-sleeve plaid shirt, faded jeans, and the work boots she wore when they gardened together. Her hair was pulled back into a ponytail that went through the hole in the cap of her cap. She looked at him and smiled. "Good morning, boss. I thought that on our first day as work partners, you deserve breakfast to start the day off right." As he continued to look at her, he realized that she was every master's dream. He mentally memorized this moment in front of him, then walked over and kissed her. She removed the bacon from the pan and placed it on a plate to drain, then cracked 4 eggs into the lard in the pan. While she was watching them, she said, "I can't promise that I'll get up and make breakfast like this every day, but today it's a thank you for taking me with you. I'm so glad to spend the day with you." As they ate the breakfast she had prepared, Shawn couldn't help but compare her excitement to children running to the Christmas tree to see how many presents were underneath. When he finished, she took the plates and cutlery and took them to the dishwasher. He went to shower and get dressed while she finished cleaning the kitchen. The day turned out better than they both expected. Shawn got to work right away, and for the first few minutes Aaron just sat and watched him work on his current project, a bathroom renovation. Gradually, she began to have something to do. She quickly learned the names of the necessary tools and was able to bring them to him while he continued to work. She also helped him keep his work area tidy, which saved him time later in the day when it was time to finish the job. Shawn also had to admit that it was quite nice to look at her from time to time while they worked. He loved the way she looked in a long-sleeve shirt and faded jeans. He also liked it when their eyes met, and the smile on her face was accompanied by a blush when he smiled back at her. One time when they were working particularly close together, side by side, he reached out to stroke her shoulders and back and discovered that she wasn't wearing a bra. She didn't really need a bra, he mused, since her breasts were not particularly large and they remained firm. She had her shirt buttoned up, and it was loose enough on her that he didn't notice until he started hugging her. But he had to admit that it was sexy, and he spent the rest of the day trying not to let that fact distract him from his work. As they collected their tools at the end of the day, Shawn realized he had accomplished more than he had planned. He looked at Erin finishing up the last cleaning before leaving. She worked as quickly and efficiently as she had at the start of the day. Having extra hands meant he could complete the job faster than he expected. He knew his client would be happy with this, and if Erin continued to help as she was today, they would be able to take on more business, increasing revenue. On the way home, he asked, "How did you like your first working day?" She laughed joyfully, clearly impatient to share her impressions. "It was wonderful. I really enjoyed spending the day with you. I realized how much you know and can do, and I don't even know nearly everything about your skills. But I also learned a lot today and hope I was helpful enough for you to try it again tomorrow." He smiled as he answered, "Well, to tell you the truth, thanks to your help, I did a lot more today than I usually do on my own. You've been a good worker, and if you want, the assistant position is still open." "Seriously, I agree. I'm so glad to hear that I was helpful. I'm looking forward to tomorrow." Shawn parked the work truck in the garage, and they went into the house. She started to take off her cap, but he stopped her. Instead, he turned her towards him and kissed her on the lips, firmly and persistently. He wrapped his arms around her waist and pulled her closer. His sudden passion surprised Erin. She had been waiting for this moment for a long time after the incident, but was afraid to rush Shawn while he was still coping with the pain she caused him. Her heart fluttered from his kiss. These 3 weeks without sex had been the longest of their marriage, and she hoped he would continue, bringing things to a satisfactory conclusion. He broke the kiss and took a couple of steps back. "Let's go to the bedroom." Her heart began to flutter again, and she almost ran to the end of the house. When he entered the bedroom, she was already standing and waiting for his further instructions. Whatever he wanted, she was ready to fulfill it. Take off your shoes and socks. She sat down on the edge of the bed, quickly untied the laces, and threw her shoes into the corner of the room with a thud. The socks followed, and she stood in front of him again. Her face was flushed and warmth spread throughout her body. Unbutton your shirt, but don't take it off. She started at the top and quickly undid all the buttons, leaving the shirt open so that again it was clear that she was not wearing a bra. Now take off your jeans. She did it as gracefully as possible, although sometimes her skinny jeans required effort to get them off. As she bent down to pull them down her legs, her shirt fell open and Shawn could see her small breasts. When the jeans were removed, she stood in front of him in only panties, an open shirt, and a cap that was still on her head. Without taking his eyes off her, Shawn began to undress, starting with his boots, then took off his jeans and shirt, and then his cap. He put all this in a pile behind his back. Now he stood in front of her wearing only blue cotton shorts. They looked at each other for a minute. She could barely contain the urge to run up to him. But he had other plans that he was going to announce. Take off your panties. She obeyed, then they indulged in intimacy. She whispered in his ear, "Oh my God, Shawn, it was incredible. Was this a reward for being such a good worker today?" He chuckled and replied, "I don't care what you call it, but you looked so sexy in your outfit, and I could hardly wait until we got home to show you what an effect it had on me." They kissed again, each in their own way, thinking that the whole day had allowed them to overcome one more obstacle standing in the way of everything returning to normal. Erin continued to work with Shawn, learning more and more about his talent and abilities as a carpenter and handyman. He will eventually teach her how to use some of the power tools needed for his work. She also took it upon herself to go online and start researching aspects of interior design. This was an area that Shawn had never felt comfortable in, so she knew that if she could gain a better understanding of the currently popular design trends, they could offer options to their clients, thereby opening up even more opportunities to expand their business. Both met separately with Dr. Brown, who wanted to hear from each of them about Erin's 2 months of absence. When they finally met, Dr. Brown had specific questions she wanted them to discuss. In Erin's case, she felt they needed to figure out together why flirting with Roger had awakened Erin's repressed memories of wild times in college. It was during this session that Erin decided that Shawn needed to hear about her past, even though he didn't ask her to tell him. She explained that he knew that her parents were very strict in her upbringing, just like Shawn's upbringing. She went to college as an innocent girl, but once that was taken away from her, the gates seemed to open, and she felt like she still had a lot of time to catch up. At this point, she began looking for guys not as potential life partners, but rather what they could do for her later that night, if not earlier. Shawn looked down as Erin explained that she really had no idea how many guys she slept with, because counting wasn't her priority at the time. Finally, she reached her limit. In September of her freshman year, she woke up naked in her dorm bed. She had no idea how she got here and no idea what was done to her. As she searched for her clothes and tried to sneak out of the dorm and take the walk of shame back to her apartment, she knew she needed to make a change. In her mind, it was as if she was trying to wash away every guy who had allowed her to use her body for their own pleasure. That morning, she made the decision to quit this lifestyle and concentrate on her studies, preparing for the rest of her life. She made an appointment at the college clinic to get tested for illnesses and felt extremely happy when she came back clean. She was determined to settle down and give up her promiscuous lifestyle, so much so that she did not allow another man to even touch her sexually until she was soon seated at a cafe table with a man with whom she immediately fell in love. This happened 4 years after the debacle in the hostel, and all this time she remained celibate, waiting for the right man. She and Dr. Brown were trying to understand why flirting with Roger brought repressed memories of her past into the present. Seeing him desire her so much reminded her of the power she had discovered a woman's body could have over a man. Part of the guilt she faced over her ordeal with Roger came from trying to bury memories of college because she didn't feel that any man who knew about her past could love her. During those terrible 2 months, she was literally in turmoil and felt powerless to stop, even though her marriage was on the line. When Shawn heard her talk about her past, he felt the pain she was feeling. He had to admit that if he had known about her past as much as he did now, he might not have pursued a relationship with her after that first meeting in the cafe. But he also knew that he had said that he was not interested in her past, but instead wanted to focus on their future. It was one of the reasons why Erin fell in love with him so much. Looking at her now, he knew he had to say something. As horrified as he was to hear about her past, he realized that the pain she had to go through to tell him had to be close to the same level of pain he felt when he learned about her 2-month episode with Roger. During the first 8 years of their marriage, he had never once doubted her love and affection for him, and for the first time since Roger, he felt that her stories about her past could demonstrate the same level of love again. Under Dr. Brown's watchful gaze, Shawn stood up and walked over to where Erin was sitting. He helped her to her feet, lifted her face with his hands and said, "Erin, when I first told you I loved you, I didn't do it because of your past. I did this for our future. I still believe it, I love you and always will. But now that you've told me everything, if you ever feel like your past is threatening our present, please tell me and let me help you deal with it before it affects our marriage." Tears rolled down her cheeks as she looked at Shawn and replied, "Of course I will. I promise not to hide anything from you anymore. I love you so much." And with that, they hugged and kissed, another milestone in the healing process of their marriage. Dr. Brown gave them some time and then told them they needed to continue. She turned her attention to Shawn and said that she had detected his feelings of insecurity about being married to Erin. She asked him to share his first experiences so Erin could hear them. He said that he, too, was raised by strict parents who believed that studying in college was not as important as mastering a profession, since no one in his family went to university. He discovered in high school that he liked working with wood, and using the repair skills he learned from his father, he began looking for work as a laborer, listing general repair and remodeling work on his resume. Business was slow at first, but he soon began to earn enough to move out of his parents' house at age 20 and start an independent life. Hard work and good results allowed him to gradually build a client base, and over time he accumulated a list of customers, which allowed him to avoid long periods without work. He felt confident when he created a brochure with before and after photos of the work he completed. In the process of building a business, he had almost no time for his personal life. He often worked long hours because he underestimated the time needed to complete a project and wanted to completely satisfy the client by finishing the job on time. So, on that fateful day in the cafe, when Erin sat at his table, he felt intimidated because this beautiful professional woman was talking to him, just a simple laborer with no formal training. Even as they continued to communicate and grow closer, he hid his feelings of insecurity, always fearing that she would one day wake up and realize that he was not good enough for her. Yet this did not happen, and by the time they married 6 years ago, his fears had all but disappeared. When they went to social events for an accounting firm, sometimes those fears would return because he felt like he was the only uneducated person there. But Erin never made him feel inferior, and he realized that she loved him for who he was, not who he thought he should be. When he found out about her episode with Roger, all those feelings of fear came back at once. And while he was very angry at her for hurting their relationship, he also feared that what Erin saw in Roger might be present in the other colleagues she works with. Part of his decision to stay or go was that maybe he should leave so she could find someone who was as educated as her. When Erin heard this, she couldn't wait to talk to Shawn. The first thing she said was, "Shawn, have I ever shown you that you are not my equal? On the contrary, for me, you are a strong support in our relationship. Do you know this? Do you see how much I need you? This should be obvious now, after everything that has happened. You must be my support." He looked at her and said, "No, you are not the reason for my feelings. That's one of the things I love about you." she replied. Okay, in fact, after being at work with you the last few weeks, I can see how much skill you have. It was exciting to watch you work and how you patiently taught me and showed me how I could help you. Dr. Brown was surprised to learn that they worked together. She concluded the session by noting the positives in their development. She recommended reducing the number of sessions to once every 2 weeks and later to once a month. The latest development in the restoration of Shawn and Erin's marriage came as a complete surprise. It came in the form of a phone call. It had been 9 months since the near breakup of their marriage. By this time, Erin was actively involved in several aspects of the business, doing all the financial work, creating design projects for clients, and working alongside Shawn every day, improving her skills under his guidance. She even designed an advertising logo for the company, and now they wore the same t-shirts with this logo. These t-shirts became their corporate uniform, and they wore them whenever they worked on site. She also took responsibility for taking calls and organizing schedules. So, one morning, while they were on site, she answered the company's call, assuming it was a routine matter, such as a request for an estimate or a call from a supplier. However, she was surprised when the interlocutor said, "Hello, my name is Rachel Boone. I am the owner of Hometown Cafe in the city center. More than 10 years have already passed since the last renovation, and it's time to update the interior. Your company was recommended to me because you did a great job for a friend of mine. Can we meet to discuss this?" Erin almost dropped her phone. This was their cafe, or at least the cafe that had once been theirs. Neither of them had set foot in his door since what they began to call Decision Day. She banged her fists on the wall where they were working to get Shawn's attention and said, "Yeah, I think we can arrange something. When will it be convenient for you to meet?" Rachel replied, "As soon as possible. We are entering the slow season, and I was hoping the renovations could be done at this time. Do you know where the cafe is?" Erin smiled. "Oh yes, my husband and I have been there many times in the past, although not recently. How about we arrange a meeting tomorrow?" "Yes, that will do. How about you come over for dinner tomorrow night? I'll treat you. I'm very interested to hear your thoughts on what the new renovation might look like." Erin slowed her response and said, "Please wait a minute. I need to consult with my husband. He is the other half of our group." She put down the phone and told Shawn, "This cafe is our cafe. The owner wants to do a complete renovation and has invited us to dinner tomorrow night to discuss it. Can we handle this?" Shawn looked at Erin and said, "Of course, I'm not afraid to go there. I think we got through our last visit pretty well. This could be a profitable project. Can you handle this? If you are with me, I can handle anything. Let's do this." She returned to the phone and made an appointment for 7 p.m. the next day. After hanging up, she told Shawn that everything was arranged. Erin thought a little and said, "You know, we somehow left there with an unpleasant aftertaste. I know we moved on with our lives, but I wonder how we would feel if we went back to the cafe and saw my old office right across the street." He tried to reassure her. "Remember, if this is difficult, tell me, and we will get through it together." The next evening, they entered the cafe together, hand in hand. The hostess, who was working that fateful day 9 months ago, was there again and recognized them. She smiled when she saw them holding hands. They told her they were meeting the owner, and she immediately showed them to a table in the back of the cafe, on the other side of the building from where their table used to be. Rachel Boone was already sitting there, next to a man who looked like her age. Rachel stood up to greet them. "Shawn, Erin, nice to meet you in person. You are familiar to me. Have you been here before?" Shawn replied, "Yes, many times, although it's been months since we've been here." "Oh, sorry to hear that. Was it because of the food or maybe because of the service?" Erin decided to answer her question after all. It was her fault that they stopped coming. "No, this has nothing to do with cafes or food. We always enjoyed coming here. Sometimes life just gets in the way and changes your plans." Rachel nodded. "I understand. I know how it goes. This is my husband Dale. We own and operate Hometown Cafe together." After they shook Dale's hand, they sat down at the table. The waitress came to take the order. Once the order was placed, they began discussing what they wanted to achieve with the renovation. Shawn watched with pride as Erin virtually took over the meeting, asking questions about themes, color schemes, floor plans, and so on. She seemed completely confident as she answered and asked the Boones questions, taking notes at every step. They continued discussing the project for another 30 minutes after their food arrived. One of Shawn's concerns was the time it would take to complete the renovation. Boone agreed to close the cafe for 2 weeks to prevent disruption to customers and staff. It was a big project, and 2 weeks wasn't a lot of time, so he knew they would need to budget for subcontractors to do some of the work. They continued discussing the project for another half hour after dinner. When it was time to leave, Rachel said, "Shawn and Erin, talking to you tonight has made me even more convinced that I want you to take on this project. Erin, you have some amazing ideas, and I look forward to seeing what you have to offer. Send me an estimate as soon as possible. Let's become partners." They left the cafe holding hands, just like when they entered. When they got to the car, Shawn opened the door for Erin, but not before he grabbed her and pulled her towards him, kissing her hard on her surprised lips. "What was that?" Erin exclaimed. He replied, "For 2 reasons. First of all, we managed to return to the scene of the crime, so to speak. I would say we definitely got over it and put it all behind us. And secondly, you were amazing there. You took charge of this meeting, discussing renovation ideas, color schemes, and themes as if you had been doing this your whole life. Can you believe that once upon a time you just wanted to be with me at work, and now you're having design meetings with people who probably have a lot more money than we do? Do you think I was too persistent? I didn't want to dominate the meeting." "Relax, Erin, they were clearly impressed because they gave us a lot to do." They returned home and immediately worked for a couple of hours before heading to bed. Shawn was so impressed with how Erin got to work that he suggested she stay home from the current project for a few more days so she could focus entirely on choosing the design she was going to present. When he returned home on the second day, she had already drawn 3 sketches of the cafe's interior, each with a different design and color scheme. He made a few suggestions, and then she moved on to the final designs. She was not an expert in art or architecture, but her drawings were professional enough that the basic idea of the design was clearly visible. When the designs were ready, they sat down together to come up with an estimate. There were slight cost differences in one of the designs, but that probably wouldn't have made a big difference in the Boone's choice. Shawn contacted several potential subcontractors for electrical and flooring work. He believed that he and Erin could handle the rest. It would be a long 2 weeks with 16-hour days, but they both believed in the project, so they kept moving forward. In the end, the Boones chose the most expensive design option, which was Erin's favorite option. They set a timetable for the work and allocated a 2-week period during which the cafe would be closed in order to carry out the renovation as efficiently as possible without interference from customers and staff. It's time to start working. Shawn and Erin put their heart and soul into this renovation. It turned out to be even more difficult than they expected, but this did not discourage them from achieving their final goal. The subcontractors arrived right on time, and Shawn prepared the design so they could start working immediately. The Boones ordered new tables and chairs that arrived unassembled, and Shawn began assembling the tables while Erin worked on the chairs. It was a real race to the finish. Shawn and Erin stayed up all night before the scheduled opening. In fact, the morning breakfast crew started their work while Shawn and Erin were still finishing up. When the doors opened at 6 a.m., they had just loaded up tools and completed their final cleanup. The cafe opened on time with a completely new style and color scheme. Shawn and Erin didn't wait for compliments. They were both exhausted. All they wanted to do was take a shower and get some sleep. Later that evening, they were invited to the official grand opening party. Until that moment, only sleep was on their agenda. When they finally woke up in the afternoon, they decided to dress up a little since it was a party. Erin had many clothes to choose from since she no longer wore business suits. But Shawn had other plans. He picked out a dress for her that she hadn't worn in a couple of years. It fit her figure and emphasized her graceful curves very well. Besides, it was quite short, so her legs looked at their best. He himself chose a long sweater and gray trousers. When they entered the cafe, they looked like a very modern couple. Once they were seated, introductions and lots of delicious food ensued. The Boones were sitting at their table. In the midst of all the hustle and bustle, Shawn looked at his phone to see what time it was and noticed something that surprised him. He looked at Aaron and said, "Do you know what day it is?" Aaron responded, "Yes, this is the day our company celebrates its biggest success to date." "Yes, but one more thing. Exactly 9 years ago, you walked into this cafe, sat down at my table, and changed my life forever." Aaron smiled at him and then frowned. "This means that exactly a year ago, I almost threw it all in the trash." Shawn reached out to stroke her hair and said, "I choose not to remember this anniversary. In fact, I think this is the most appropriate way to celebrate this day. 9 years ago we met, and today the cafe opened with a new design thanks to us. I think we will remember this day with warmth in our souls for the rest of our lives." And with that, they kissed and then joined the others at the party, holding hands throughout the night. A year ago, their marriage almost collapsed. Today, it has flourished, becoming even stronger. On the way home, Aaron looked at Shawn and asked, "What made you decide to give me a second chance? I'm not sure I could have done this if our situation had been reversed." Shawn thought for a moment and then said, "You know, the reason what you did hurt me so much was because I loved you so much. The more you love, the more pain you can receive. And when I looked at my pain, I realized that it was caused by great love. For me, this love was worth fighting for. If I was at fault and you looked at it the same way, I think you would make the same decision." He reached out to take her hand and squeeze it. As he drove, he said, "You know, I think we should thank Roger for what he did to us." "What the hell do you mean? He almost destroyed us." Shawn laughed. "True, but look at us now. If Roger hadn't started following you, you would never have left your job, and then you wouldn't have started working with me. I could never have gotten this order to renovate the cafe on my own. Thanks to Roger, the business is stronger than ever, and we are closer than ever. We are a great team in business and in life. All this may be true, but I'm not going to look up his number to call and thank him." Shawn agreed. As they pulled into the garage, he said, "But I need you to do something for me." "What exactly, dear?" "Get your hair in a ponytail and find your cap. I think I found a handicraft girl I want to sleep with tonight." They ran into the house, laughing and squealing until they reached the back bedroom and closed the door. The cafe was the place where it all began. The cafe was the place where almost everything collapsed. The cafe was where they started over, and the cafe was where they celebrated the success of their new beginning. The cafe was truly a mystical place. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.